Hello and welcome on Maksakova TV. I'm happy to say that we continue our programs, Synthetic Warfare. And tonight, Captain Gary Tabach and I will introduce a new guest to our audience. Let me ask you, Gary, to begin. And I think everyone is impatient to see who is our new guest.
Thank you, beautiful Maria. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you. And it is so good to see my brother in arms, Colonel Sam Hartwell. Samuel Hartwell, at the end of the program, you will understand why his name is Hart, like heart, and why it is well. So it's a healthy heart, let's say. And I'm honored to introduce we'll call him Colonel Sam. He is a graduate of a most prestigious military institution, United States Military Academy at West Point. He has served for, I think, 30 years, you correct me if I'm wrong, in the United States Army, reaching a very high rank of a colonel. And he spent all of his career, I know this is going to be interesting for many of our listeners, he spent most of his career, or all of his career, as an intelligence officer, specializing in the Soviet Union, because at that time we were all Soviet Union specialists. And therefore, he's a well-read and very knowledgeable man in the arena of Soviet Union and former Soviet Union. And he's a combat veteran. He has advised some of our really military leaders on the situations in Iraq and Afghanistan, and how the Russians played their roles in them, and so forth. He's a very highly decorated combat officer. So now said that, he's also in Ukraine from the very first, I think he arrived in March, right after the 24th of February, as soon as the full-scale war started, and started helping with whatever he could. As many of us did. So, but the reason I wanted to talk to Colonel Hartwell is to discuss, and a very important part is that his classmate, Mark, what's his last name?
Kozlovsky.
Mark Kozlovsky, his classmate from West Point, came to Ukraine in 2014 and fought with the Ukrainians in Atoll, and unfortunately he was killed. So Colonel Hartwell, Sam Hartwell, has credibility in this arena. So I would say that, unfortunately, not all West Point graduates are people of honor. Because at West Point, again, if correct me if I'm wrong, a very important thing that General MacArthur said, that honor, country, duty is very important. We all, as officers, pledge the allegiance that we will not lie, cheat, steal, nor tolerate the ones that do. We will not tolerate people who do that. We will go after them. So that is, and many of us, people in the military will look up to cadets from West Point, to the midshipmen from Naval Academy, to cadets from the Air Force Academy, because this is the code of honor that we live by. Unfortunately, we have such a person as Colonel McGregor, who is, I believe, graduated from West Point a few years before you, Sam. And he's a very common guest at Tucker Carlson. Hundreds of millions of people watch him. And so, for some reason, he ended up being an expert on the war in Ukraine, on this region. And now, again, I don't want to repeat the 30 years of experience that Colonel Hartwell had, and 30 years experience me as a FAO officer, foreign aerial officer, who was specializing in this arena. Both of us are here from since the war started, and we were here before. Where Colonel McGregor is an armor officer, probably has never been to Ukraine except maybe some short visit or something. And all of a sudden, I believe he's an armor officer, which is very respectful and honorable to be an armor officer. But all of a sudden, he's an expert with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson never interviewed me nor Colonel Hartwell. But for some reason, Colonel McGregor is the expertise in this area. And I had a challenge with him, saying that he was lying. We cannot, Colonel Hartwell and I, we cannot tolerate another senior officer lying to the hundreds of millions of people about Ukraine. That 250,000 Ukrainian soldiers are dead. Where are his sources? That the drug cartel in Mexico had on his back a Javelin missile, which was not even me as a naval officer can tell it was not a Javelin missile, and that missile was stolen or sold due to corruption in Ukraine, which is an absolute lie, and it is not true. And many other things that he's said about Ukraine and the morale of the soldiers here, the unwillingness to fight, the uncontrolled corruption here, that I think were truly to mislead the American people and to discredit the Ukrainian, talking about a dictatorship here, closing churches. I mean, we all know the churches many years been working for KGB, and he did not close all churches, only the ones that worked for the Russians. And many other things in such manner that he was presenting Ukraine in a very, very bad light. And I don't understand why. How can we fight that? So, Colonel Hartwell, please, could you tell us what you know about Colonel McGregor and why he's doing such a thing?
Well, first of all, I can say that he claims that 400,000, not 250,000, but 400,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed. It's preposterous. It's impossible. The Pentagon has their estimates, and the Ukrainian government doesn't officially state anything, but his number is probably at least 8 times too high, maybe even 10 times too high. It's just a preposterous number. Okay, first of all. Now, about his background, at first, I couldn't believe that he was a West Point graduate. And then I did some checking, and I found out that, yes, he was a graduate in 1974. I talked to one of my classmates who met him 8 years ago in Washington, D.C. McGregor came into his office, and it was clear in the conversation, he said that he was bitter about not having been promoted to general officer. He has an anger towards the Army. And he was at one time, a roommate of General Petraeus. And he told my friend, my classmate, that it was he that should have been a 4-star general, not Petraeus. So it's clear that you have here a guy with an exaggerated ego, almost besides his anger towards the Army, he has this feeling that he's entitled, or that I don't even know the correct the term, but he feels that he should have been a 4-star general. So he's got these delusions of grandeur, really, and this anger towards the Army. So he has to, in some way, because of this, feel that the way for him to feel important is to make these crazy claims about Ukraine that for some reason Tucker Carlson wants to hear. And that's the other strange thing. I don't know who the bigger liar is here. Tucker Carlson could have any one of the last 8 NATO commanders in a row on his show, but he doesn't. And every one of those 8 commanders who have opined on the military situation are in support, strong support of Ukraine, and say that we're not doing enough and that Ukraine is doing a great job. As the Pentagon has said, on a scale of 1 to 10, Ukraine is using American weapons as a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10. So why he lies so obviously is beyond me, other than it's an ego problem. He's got these delusions of grandeur and this bitterness towards the army. It's just a very personal psychological thing. And then you have Tucker, who facilitates him. I cannot believe that so many people would listen to a colonel who's a nobody ahead of the generals like Petraeus and Keane, especially, who have been so outspoken. Anyway, this is what I know of the man, and that's my assessment of him, and it's just nonsense.
Sam, and I just want to explain, those of us had the honor to serve under the command of General Petraeus. We called them an American Napoleon. So I just want our listeners to understand who General Petraeus was to us and who he is now. He will go down in history as one of the greatest military leaders that has been known to people. And the history will show that. So it is idiotic to think that, I think that you have to be sick to think that you should have been General Petraeus. I should have, my mother was a psychiatrist. And as a child, I used to go with work to her to a psychiatric institution. And even there, I've never met anybody who said, I should have been a Napoleon. So what you're saying is disturbing, particularly that it will mislead millions and hundreds of millions of Americans and other English-speaking world to such misinformation and pure lies about Ukraine. Also, I was completely disturbed and disappointed with Tucker Carlson agreeing to it that the Ukrainians put an American as a spokesman for the not National Guard, but for the local defense unions, to represent them in English language, and the guy is, or a gal now, is a transsexual, and I'm not sure which the right way to express it. Yes, many of us, and especially in this culture, may not agree with all those things, and we think it's not. We could, but the thing is, yes, the individual could be transsexual, but that individual was volunteer and was a medic and saved many lives out in the front and was wounded as well. So their sexual preferences or whatever they think they are is fine. I may not agree with it. But to say that this way the Ukrainians are not preserving or protecting the Christian values, and Putin, in a sense, by bashing gays and by preserves our Judeo-Christian values on which our country was based, is, I think, preposterous. It's the same thing to say that Hitler was preserving Christian values because he was killing Jews and gays and gypsies. And that way, he was helping out the Christian church. That is bizarre. As a Jew, brother Christians, I can tell you that KGB thug is not preserving or representing any kind of Christian values. None. So for Colonel McGregor, a West Point graduate, I will never be tired to underline that, because I think our listeners should understand what a West Point graduate is. It is the best, the creme de la creme. It is the tip of the spear of our society. To get into the West Point, you have to be way above anybody, not in your class, but in your entire school, to even get an appointment there, to even take an exam to get in there. So this is the best officer that our country's been putting out for 200 years or so. I don't know how old is West Point, but so it is offensive to both of us, to Colonel Hartwell and to myself. But now I think I'd be glad to hand over the interrogation to Maria Maksakova, we will continue the interrogation of Colonel Hartwell.
On the opposite, I want to say that all kind of speculations, what you just told us about, are not only very harmful to the audience, to they're misleading people to wrong thoughts and ideas, but at the same day when all this is happening and there are those TV shows and people are sitting in nice rooms and the cameras around them and so on, at the same time, the Ukrainian soldiers suffer because of the lack of armory. And this is why I think we cannot keep silent about programs of that kind. Too many people watch them, and too many people have the wrong opinion after them. So I think that Colonel Sam began already about his psychological portrait. This is very interesting, I think, also to our audience. And I think it would be correct if we ask Colonel Sam to continue.
You know, I could talk about the military situation a long, long time, but all the former NATO commanders, General Petraeus included, say that we should be giving Ukraine these long-range HIMARS missiles called ATACMS, and we should be giving the HIMARS cluster munitions, just as we have given the normal artillery. The regular artillery can shoot about 25 kilometers, these cluster munitions. So you can go deeply into the Russian rear. But with a HIMARS missile, you could go a full 50 kilometers deep into the Russian rear. We don't have, the Ukrainians, I say we, do not have air superiority. We don't even have air parity. In the American Army, no commander would do what we're asking the Ukrainians to do. And that is a problem with this administration. I don't understand it. I hope that they'll change their mind soon and authorize these cluster munitions for HIMARS. But that is a major, major issue. We need those munitions now to really exploit the success that we're seeing in Zaporizhia Oblast. Yuri wanted me to mention what I'm doing here in Ukraine as well.
But first, let me introduce you what you're doing with your permission. Sorry for interrupting you, Colonel. But I met, I'll say Colonel Sam, I think it'd be easier for our listeners. I met Colonel Sam. It was introduced by my brother in arms, who worked with me in Poland, transferring F-16s to Poland from us and other military equipment. And he introduced me. He says, you have to meet this guy, Sam. He's an army. I'm like, I don't want to meet the army guy. But anyway, I was very happy to meet. When we met, we were talking about what we were doing and assisting wounded soldiers and helping them in different ways. And I was telling Colonel Sam that I met these people, doctors who are doing face reconstruction. Because limbs, when legs and limbs and arms are missing, we're kind of used to it. We don't turn away from those people. The society accepts them. But when somebody's face is messed up, and people tend to turn their eyes away. These people tend to shy away. They stay home. It's a very psychologically difficult thing to deal with. And Colonel Sam right away picked up the phone. I mean, this is what a leadership was all about. This is what I think the local leaders have to learn. Not to say, okay, I'll talk to my friend who has a friend who has a friend, and then, well, that friend is sick, that friend is fired now, and then the other one is in prison under investigation, and things go on and on and on, and they never come to any kind of conclusion, but promises a lot, kind of a lot like our administration now with Ukraine, promising and promising and promising. And Colonel Sam right away picked up the phone and started making phone calls and text messaging. And by the time our conversation was over, he goes, I have it. These doctors can go to this conference. These people are going to meet these people, and they're going to continue with work with the wounded soldiers. So it was done, and in about an hour, he kept sitting there and doing it until he got it accomplished. So with that, my first impression of you, Colonel Sam, please tell us, what is it that you're doing in Ukraine since March of 22?
May I comment one more thing about the long-range missiles ATACMS? This is the theme we're discussing every single week because I don't really see a reason why it is so tough and long-lasting to get this decision out of the White House administration in the moment where already the Congress accepted a resolution about it, where everyone in America who knows the subject is actually pressing on the White House administration, and particularly on President Biden, about the Ukrainian generals and politicians. It is clear and evident that there is over a year time that we are asking for particular this type of missiles for ATACMS. And the only thing that is now missing is that signature probably of Mr. Joseph Biden, of the president. And right away, exactly when all this discussion comes up to a very, very high level again, we see a TV show made by Tucker Carlson with that colonel we're talking about today.
Okay.
And this whole, what was, done by everyone, all these efforts, they kind of drown in that conversation. And those who were kind of, I don't know how to say it in German, Putin-Versteher. There's someone who is trying to understand why that thug, as you said, Gary, absolutely correctly, is doing something. It's a point to, I don't know, you can ask a psychiatrician why he's doing something, but why are they discussing in a way that makes possible postpone that very important decision about ATACMS? Isn't it somehow, I don't know, it may have a liaison? Is it somehow connected? Why exactly when we need that decision comes up a TV show of that kind?
If I can answer that, I can give you my opinion. I think from the beginning, first of all, Joe Biden has never been in support of military action. He was against the Osama bin Laden raid in Afghanistan. He's been criticized by both parties for not being strong enough. And he has with him a national security team that is originally from the Obama administration, who were also very, very weak on Ukraine. I believe they don't understand the enemy. They do not understand Russia, Russians, Putin. They believe Medvedev when he makes these threats, and they're worried about nuclear war. But all of us who know Russia, the Russian mentality, Putin, Medvedev, we all know that this is just bullying, bluff. They can do nothing. But the current leadership takes it seriously. And unfortunately, because of that, because we don't show some aggression, some escalation, we don't show our own red lines, then Russia sees this as a weakness and keeps going and going and going. I don't know why they won't allow these ATACMS. Neither does any of the senior former generals in the U.S. military. So we all share your concern. We all share your concern.
And also right now, as Maria mentioned it very well, why did it come out now? Why did such interview came out now? Also, in Ukrainian favorite media sources such as New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, Political, they came out just recently with articles saying that we gave all the weapons, everything that's needed to Ukraine. We gave them everything. We gave $120 billion, which is not true, of military aid to Ukraine. And but the Ukrainians are not advancing fast enough. They're not fighting hard enough. So they're preparing, I believe, this is why this is such time. I believe that they're preparing to tell Ukraine that they're not going to help any longer, that today's administration is not really intending to help, because they've tried everything to force Ukrainians to commit to negotiations, and Ukrainians keep resisting and saying, we're not going to negotiate until the Russians are gone from our land. And this is the message they're sending now. And McGregor and Tucker are playing up to it. They're playing up to Putin, and they're playing up to against Ukraine. So at that point, Sam, I'm very sorry. Let's get back to what is it that you're doing in Ukraine?
Well, I could still keep talking about the military situation, but I guess I'll stop now. As Captain Gary said earlier, that one of my very best friends from West Point, my classmate, Mark Bezlowski, was killed at the Battle of Ilovaisk, August 19th, 2014. He had been living in Ukraine since early 1992. I was living in Ukraine in the mid-90s, just right around the corner from him, and we were great friends here as well. And I have a lot of other Ukrainian friends. So when the war started, I came because of those reasons, because of his memory, and he's buried here in Kiev at Mohila, Askold Mohila. You know, this famous cemetery for Ukrainian war heroes. So in his memory, and to help my friends, I came over, and I started early on supporting NGOs, American NGOs, supplying medical gear to Ukrainian forces. But now I'm almost exclusively in veteran support. I represent or assist 3 U.S. NGOs here. One is a U.S.-Polish NGO that is focused on prosthetics primarily, but also polytrauma support. And that website is polytrauma.org. Then I also assist it's called Veteran Coalition International. It's based in Washington, D.C., but it is a U.S.-Danish partnership. And what we're trying to do there is to get all of the kind of veterans administrations, the veterans groups in the various NATO countries to work together and to assist Ukraine in developing their own veteran networks and to assist Ukrainian veterans. In fact, right now, Veteran Coalition International is working together with a Ukrainian veteran NGO called Pisia Sluzhby. And what we've got are lawyers in Ukraine who are going to do the paperwork for Ukrainian amputees and other wounded veterans to make sure that they get their bonuses, their money, and their veteran pay from the government. It's not automatic, as many people think, and the soldiers think that too. But now that we understand the process and we have the paperwork and we have many pro bono Ukrainian lawyers ready to work, we're ready to take 1,000 of these amputees and other wounded veterans, and we're working on that right now. That is project number 1 for me. And then a third project is with a US-based organization, an NGO called AspenAid.org. And with them, we're bringing in these doctors to do training and then to also do pro bono operation work and to assist with the prosthetics in Ukraine. We want to promote prosthetics made in Ukraine for these wounded veterans, for the amputees, for many reasons that are obvious. Those are the three main areas that I'm really focused on: veteran support, helping these guys get money, helping them get prosthetics faster, either in this country or outside this country. And then, one more thing with AspenAid is we're bringing doctors from the US into Poland and Lviv, maybe even Kiev later, for on-the-ground training. We've already got a specialist, a spinal surgeon coming to the Lviv Veterans Hospital who's going to spend a week with their surgeons on special operations. He's been here already earlier in the spring, where he did 7 spinal surgeries for children who had scoliosis. It's fantastic work that he did. And again, that's pro bono. And it's because he's a Ukrainian American. So that's what I'm doing. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to help in any way I can.
Thank you. I have so many questions and so many things, but I think it is very, very important that what you're doing, Colonel Sam, in the sense of putting the veteran organizations together, so we're not just bringing and helping Ukrainians with prosthesis, with a PTSD, with a psychological recovery, with employment, with the family work, with different things. But what we're doing, we're teaching them how to help themselves, so that our veteran organizations and their veteran organizations can get together and learn how to help yourself without an outside help. Although it's always good when people are united and people are, we're brothers in arms and sisters nowadays in arms who are working together and helping each other. Because today we're not fighting for one country or for one czar or for one god. Today we're fighting for the right side, to be on the right side of history. And unfortunately, it is being fought for on the Ukrainian soil today, where we could be instrumental. But today the world is very small, and there's bad and good, and we just got to remain on the good side. And it is clearly that Ukraine, with all its problems, is on the good side. And at least 3 of us are together, and at least 3 of us are doing it. So I also want to make sure that people who are listening to us, Colonel Sam and I, we're of the same rank. It's just in the Army, it's called a colonel. In the Navy, it's called a captain. But I just tend to think that in the Navy, a little bit higher, because we got a little bit more class. That's why we don't like when somebody calls us a colonel. But anyway, Colonel Sam, thank you for your service. It is an honor for me to know you. It is an honor for me to stand back to back with you. And we continue to be engaged in a good fight, even though we're 2 men that are not, although we probably could still run around with a gun, but I think there are younger and braver guys now who fight those wars. But you and I could still, and Maria, we can still be engaged and continue the fight, and we don't give up.
I want to thank you too, because it was very inspiring and very reinforcing hearing from you, things that are so deeply needed. And sometimes we have a feeling that there are only a few of us who talk it out, who say about it. And every time when I really feel a brother in arm, as Gary said, coming to our company. I feel very, very happy, and I want to thank you for that. And as you said, Gary, when there are even two or better three of you thinking about something important, then as we Christians know, I am among you.
That's true.
God says, I am among you, and there are two or three thinking about one thing.
And we should not let people like Tucker Carlson, who I've listened all of my adult life, or somebody, a bad guy like McGregor, or a lot of bad and corrupt and cheating people, we should not let them discourage us.
And we should not let them say that their type of indulging those criminals by saying that they are having some Christianity. This is something that ruins, honestly to say, a way to think for many people.
Correct.
Colonel Sam?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say thank you, Maria, for having me, and Gary for all the kind words. It's actually a great pleasure to have met you and know you. I wish you were on the National Security Council giving Biden advice. You are probably the most experienced and knowledgeable American in the country, in the military, on this subject. And it's I'm not exaggerating at all. I know quite a few of the FAOs in this business, so-called specialists in the Russian sphere, and too many of them have been Russian apologists for so many years and saying nothing and doing nothing. But you've lived there, you've grown up there to a point. You understand the mentality. You understand far better, culturally, militarily, socially, politically, what's going on there than anyone in the administration. And it's a great pleasure to know you. I'll learn a lot from you. Thank you both very much for having me.
And let's hope that one of you will finally arrive at Tucker Carlson show, and that you will have the possibility to tell the truth.
Tucker would never be that brave, but we wish.
We can try. Colonel, I salute you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.